Hello and welcome to today's episode. I'm really glad you're here. In this podcast, we talk about ideas that help you grow, improve your English, and understand the world a little better. Today's topic is something that affects all of us, no matter our age, job, or background. We're going to talk about the psychology of success, in other words, how your mind, your habits, and your beliefs influence your chances of achieving your goals. When we hear the word success, we often imagine famous people, rich entrepreneurs, top athletes, or brilliant scientists. But success is not only about money or fame. Success can also mean building a happy family, finishing your studies, starting your own business, or simply becoming a better version of yourself. Each person defines success in a different way, and that is perfectly okay. Let's start with a simple question: why do some people succeed while others, who may be just as smart or talented, struggle to reach their goals? Many people think that success is only about intelligence, talent, or luck. These things do matter, but psychology shows us that your mindset, your attitude, and your daily habits are often even more important. One of the most important ideas in the psychology of success is something called a growth mindset. This concept was made popular by psychologist Carol Dweck. A growth mindset means that you believe your abilities and intelligence can improve with effort, practice, and learning. In contrast, a fixed mindset means you believe your talents and intelligence are something you are born with and cannot really change. Imagine two students who both receive a low grade on an exam. The first student has a fixed mindset. He might think, "I'm just bad at this subject. I'm not smart enough." Because of this belief, he may stop trying or avoid studying in the future. The second student has a growth mindset. She might think, "I didn't do well this time, but I can learn from my mistakes and improve." She studies harder, asks for help, and slowly gets better results. Over time, the second student is much more likely to succeed, not because she was more talented at the beginning, but because she believed she could grow. Your beliefs about yourself are powerful. If you constantly tell yourself that you are not good enough, your brain starts to accept this as a fact. But if you tell yourself that you can learn, improve, and overcome challenges, your brain begins to look for ways to make that belief true. This is why positive but realistic self-talk is so important. Another key part of success is goal setting. Successful people usually have clear goals. They know what they want and they have a plan to get there. But not all goals are equally helpful. Psychologists often talk about SMART goals. SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Let's say you want to improve your English. A vague goal would be, "I want to be better at English." A SMART goal would be, "I will study English for 20 minutes every day and learn 10 new words each week for the next 3 months." This goal is clear, you can measure your progress, and it has a time limit. Because of this, it is much easier to follow and to stay motivated. Motivation itself is another important psychological factor in success. There are two main types of motivation: extrinsic and intrinsic. Extrinsic motivation comes from outside rewards, like money, praise, or good grades. Intrinsic motivation comes from inside you. It is the joy of learning, the satisfaction of solving a problem, or the excitement of creating something new. Research shows that intrinsic motivation is often stronger and longer lasting. For example, if you learn English only because your boss tells you to, you might stop studying once you change jobs. But if you learn English because you enjoy understanding movies, talking to people from other countries, or reading books in the original language, you are more likely to continue learning even when it becomes difficult. Of course, staying motivated all the time is not easy. Everyone feels tired, bored, or discouraged sometimes. This is where habits become extremely important. Motivation can come and go, but habits are like automatic behaviors that you do without thinking too much. Successful people often build daily habits that move them closer to their goals, even on days when they don't feel very motivated. Think about brushing your teeth. You probably don't feel excited about it every day, but you still do it because it is a habit. In the same way, if you create a habit of reading in English for 10 minutes every evening, you will keep improving even on days when you are tired or busy. Small actions, repeated every day, can lead to big results over time. Another psychological factor that plays a big role in success is how we deal with failure. Many people are afraid of failing. They avoid taking risks because they don't want to feel embarrassed or disappointed. But failure is not the opposite of success. In many cases, failure is a part of success. If you look at the stories of successful entrepreneurs, writers, or athletes, you will often see a long list of failures before they achieved their goals. What makes them different is not that they never failed, but that they did not give up. They treated failure as feedback, not as a final result. They asked themselves, "What can I learn from this? What can I do differently next time?" This way of thinking is closely connected to resilience. Resilience is your ability to recover from difficult situations, stress, or setbacks. Life is full of unexpected problems. You might lose a job, fail an exam, or face personal challenges. Resilient people feel the same emotions as everyone else, but they find ways to continue moving forward instead of staying stuck in negative feelings. Let's also talk about the influence of your environment and the people around you. Psychology shows that we are strongly affected by our social circle. If you spend most of your time with people who complain, avoid challenges, and don't believe in their own dreams, it becomes harder for you to stay positive and motivated. On the other hand, if you are surrounded by people who work hard, set goals, and support each other, you are more likely to develop similar habits and attitudes. This does not mean you should stop talking to friends or family who are negative. But it is helpful to be aware of how other people's attitudes influence you. You can also create a positive environment by following inspiring people online, listening to educational podcasts, reading books about personal growth, or joining groups where people share similar goals. Another important idea in the psychology of success is the concept of delayed gratification. This means choosing a smaller reward now or a bigger reward later. A famous experiment called the marshmallow test showed that children who were able to wait for a bigger reward instead of taking a smaller one immediately often had better life outcomes later, such as higher academic results and better self-control. In adult life, delayed gratification appears in many situations. For example, you might choose to watch another episode of a TV series, or you might choose to study, exercise, or work on a personal project. The first option gives you pleasure right now, but the second option can bring much bigger rewards in the future. Successful people are not perfect, but they often make choices that support their long-term goals rather than only their short-term comfort. Let's not forget about the role of emotions. Some people think that successful individuals are always confident, calm, and in control. In reality, they also feel fear, doubt, stress, and frustration. The difference is that they learn how to manage these emotions instead of letting emotions control their actions. Emotional intelligence is the ability to understand your own emotions, recognize the emotions of others, and react in a healthy and productive way. For example, if you receive criticism at work, you might feel angry or hurt. A person with high emotional intelligence will pause, think about the situation, and try to understand if there is something useful in that feedback. Instead of reacting immediately, they respond in a more thoughtful way, which helps them grow and maintain good relationships. Another psychological tool that helps people succeed is visualization. Many athletes and performers use visualization to imagine themselves achieving their goals. They picture the situation in detail, the environment, the sounds, the feelings in their body. This practice can help reduce anxiety and increase confidence because the brain starts to feel familiar with the situation, even before it actually happens. You can use visualization in simple ways. For example, before an important presentation in English, you can close your eyes and imagine yourself speaking clearly, answering questions, and feeling confident. While visualization alone will not replace real practice, it can prepare your mind and reduce fear. Let's also discuss the importance of self-discipline. Self-discipline is the ability to do what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like doing it. It is closely related to delayed gratification and habits. many people wait to feel motivated before they start working. But successful people often start working first, and motivation comes later. Think about a writer. If the writer only writes when they feel inspired, they might produce very little work. But if they decide to write every day at the same time, they train their brain to enter a creative state more easily. Over time, this discipline leads to more experience, better skills, and often greater success. It is also important to understand that success is rarely a straight line. People often imagine it as a simple path: you set a goal, you work hard, and you reach it. In reality, the path is usually full of turns, delays, and unexpected changes. You might change careers, discover new interests, or face obstacles that force you to adapt your plans. Because of this, flexibility is another useful psychological trait. Being flexible does not mean you give up easily. It means you are open to changing your strategy while still keeping your main goal in mind. For example, if your first plan to learn English was to study only with textbooks, but you find it boring, you can add podcasts, movies, or language exchange partners. The goal stays the same, but the method changes. Now let's talk about comparison and social media, which play a big role in our modern lives. Every day, we see pictures and stories of other people's achievements, travels, and perfect moments. It is easy to start comparing your life to the highlight reel of others and feel that you are not successful enough. From a psychological point of view, constant comparison can reduce your motivation and damage your self-esteem. It is important to remember that people usually share their best moments online, not their failures, doubts, or everyday struggles. A healthier approach is to compare yourself not to others, but to your past self. Ask yourself, am I improving? Am I closer to my goals than I was last year or last month? This kind of comparison is more realistic and more helpful. Another powerful psychological concept is the idea of purpose. People who feel that their work or their goals have meaning are often more motivated and more satisfied with their lives. Purpose does not have to be something very big or dramatic. It can be as simple as wanting to provide a good life for your family, help your community, or express your creativity. When you connect your daily tasks to a deeper purpose, even difficult or boring activities can feel more meaningful. Studying late at night becomes easier when you remember that you are doing it to build a better future for yourself or your loved ones. Finally, let's talk about balance. While it is important to work hard and stay focused on your goals, success is not only about achievement. Mental health, physical health, relationships, and rest are also part of a successful life. If you push yourself too hard for too long, you risk burnout, stress, and losing the joy in what you do. Psychology teaches us that taking breaks, sleeping well, exercising, and spending time with people you care about actually helps your brain work better. Rest is not a waste of time, it is an important part of long-term productivity and well-being. So, what can you take away from today's episode? Success is not only about talent or luck. It is strongly influenced by your mindset, your habits, your environment, and how you react to challenges. By developing a growth mindset, setting clear goals, building positive habits, managing your emotions, and staying resilient after failure, you can greatly increase your chances of reaching your personal definition of success. You don't need to change everything in your life at once. In fact, psychology shows that small, consistent changes are usually more effective than big, sudden ones. You can start with one simple step today, like setting a small goal, creating a new habit, or changing the way you talk to yourself when you make a mistake. Thank you for spending this time with me and for practicing your English while exploring this topic. Remember, your mind is one of your most powerful tools. How you think, what you believe, and what you choose to do every day can shape your future more than you might realize. I hope this episode gave you some useful ideas and also helped you learn new words and expressions in English. Take care of yourself, keep learning, and I'll talk to you again in the next episode.